All right, well, welcome back to lesson 155 as we finish up those trilateral sounds. This is really exciting times. All right, let's take a look at the homework first. As usual, we want to use this just to practice glyphing, transliterating, and translating because that's pretty much the basis of all of this. All right, and again, as I say every week, don't forget your little sound complements, your circles, your smiley faces, your dashes. All right, we're starting with that very familiar read plus chick, which is the sign that you're going into the past. Someone in the past did something. And what did that person in the past do? Well, we're constructing sentences based on vocabulary, so they united, because that was a word we learned last week, to unite. And they united in the past. We've got that N at the top. That's like our ED, so it's turning the word unite into united. Convenient when the verb actually works that way and has an ed in English. It makes sense. And who did this uniting in the past? Well, we have Niswa, as you know, with the graphical transposition for king. And what did the king unite? Well, king united two lands. Hey, the vocabulary is actually working really well this week. And he did this ability, Hana, with flax, water, vulture, with Hana, with the double crown, again, a word we learned last week, and he did it for, well, he did it for, boy, really is always a stretch when you're working with the vocabulary for frightened men. So he united all of Egypt for the frightened men. Well, maybe he did do that. Maybe it made people less frightened. But again, yes, we're building sentences based on vocabulary. I'll be actually really glad when we're out of the trilaterals. All right, which we almost are. Let's finish our last three of them today and next week. So here we have Chew, the chicken hawk. Now, note that it has a rounded top of its head and it has the little neck, not girdle. There's a term for that, like roosters have it too. You'll notice it's very similar, but different from the vulture, which is A. So it doesn't show up that much either, which is also a thing. So those are the visual differences. It's really that rounded head and the neck piece. So here we have tua, just sound it out. And then we have our determinative of a man with three strokes, showing it's a plural determinative. So haftua, enemies. Very rare word to actually use this glyph in it, but it does show up. All right. Now another interesting glyph, wa'aj, remembering that the D with the line under it is a J. You may recognize this as the same glyph as sk. We've done this before. Similar to the way the chisel can be ab or mer. It's like in English, how the word see can be k or s. So it's just out there. And we'll see this show up in words describing itself. Wa'ad, which is the actual item you are looking at, which is papyrus. You know that because there's a dash there. That determinative of a stroke line tells you this is actually being used as an ideogram. It has an extra determinative of a papyrus flowering reed next to it after you've already determined it's an ideogram, but it just reinforces that you're dealing with what it is, papyrus. Here's an interesting one where we have the papyrus with the snake superimposed on top of it. How do you read this? Well, you read it looking at which one is a sound complement. So the j of the snake obviously complements waj, and this is the word green. These do show up, not that often, but you'll want to read sort of the trilateral first, followed by the singular sound. Here we have it showing up again in another word, which is actually an interesting combination of words. So here we have waj, which we know means green, followed by were, which we know means great. This translates then, therefore, to, shockingly, the great green. And you're like, what's the great green? It sounds like, I don't know, some kind of monster out of a B movie. You'll notice the determinative of the water signs there. So while this could be the sign muwa, at the end of a word, it's a determinative, and that's because the great green is the sea. That's what the Egyptians called the sea. You have to have an Egyptian mind to understand these things. All right, now we have the broom, waha, waha. Remembering the H with the dot is like a hiss, a sound, not in the back of the throat, but in the front. Well, I guess they all come sort of from the back, but not the sound. All right, so here we have the ha, wa, and this is the verb to either put down or to live long, because you can use it for like Star Trek, live long and prosper. Here we have another word where, again, let's play spot the determinative. Oh, there it is at the end, and it's a picture of something you're not used to seeing, but you have actually seen this before. It was in the word for grain measure. So here we can use our knowledge of determinatives to understand that, oh, this is actually the word for grain. It's using a similar determinative that we've seen in a similar word. It's one of the nice clues that hieroglyphics builds into itself. All right, now here's our homework for this week. Transliterate, translate it. We'll be back, and yeah, don't let those compound glyphs with glyphs on top of glyphs trip you up too much. Just remember to read the trilateral sound first. All right, thank you again. It's so great to have you in class. Could not be doing this if you weren't here, and you're so appreciated. I'll see you next week as we round out the last of those trilaterals. Doodling with Purpose continues. See you next week.